let us read from another section of the Roar of the Ganges. This is a book we've been reading a few pages at a time together. We've made our way almost halfway through this rather thick book. So it goes to show that through consistent practice, we can be led a very long way. It begins to add up. Previously, we were introduced to Swami Tadatmanandaji's, which is the author of this book, his guru, who is known as Swami Dayananda. Swami Tadatmananda was not a Swami yet. At this time in the book, he was then known as Mark, before he renounced his earthly name and took on a spiritual one. He was a computer scientist from America who came to India in a spiritual awakening. After dinner, my guru, Swami Dayananda, sat out on the porch again for Satsang. As was his habit, spiritual company. Most ashram residents and guests, including my friends Swami Prakash and Vijay, crowded close to hear and participate in the casual discussion that drifted easily from topic to topic. The sun had just set, and a warm breeze sweeping across the foothills caressed us, carrying with it the gentle murmur of the Ganges. At one point, after the conversation had died down, Swami Dayananda turned towards me and asked, "So Mark, what news?" "Nothing much, Swamiji," I answered. "I went to the Sivananda ashram with Swami Prakash yesterday and had an interesting discussion with Swami Brahmananda." "Oh, how is the Swami's health?" he inquired, sounding quite concerned. "He looked fine," I replied. "He talked with great passion and enthusiasm about Vedanta." Swami Dayananda remarked, with a trace of amusement in his eyes. "What did he have to say?" I recounted the gist of yesterday's discussion and commented, "It was really inspiring to listen to him, although his style of teaching was hard to understand sometimes. What he said for the most part seemed like what you have taught us, except for one thing. He said that Vedanta is just a theory." "Oh? Did he compare the study of Vedanta to reading a cookbook?" "Yes, Swamiji, that's exactly what he said. How did you know?" "I have heard this many times before. A new teaching has developed that many scholars now call Neo-Vedanta. It maintains that Vedanta is merely a theory, and the practice of meditation produces enlightenment. But this was never taught by the ancient sages in the Upanishads and other scriptures. In fact, the theory/practice approach actually undermines the teachings of the rishis." "How, Swamiji?" "Suppose you take up certain spiritual practices for the sake of enlightenment. To be successful in your endeavor, you will have to work hard. After all, the result of any practice is proportional to your effort. If you work twice as hard, you can accomplish twice as much. The greater the goal, the more effort will be required. In spiritual pursuit, the goal is Atma, the true self, which is limitless, all-pervasive, non-separate from the absolute reality, Brahman. This goal is infinite, is it not? Now tell me, How much effort is necessary to reach an infinite goal? I suppose it would require infinite effort, I replied. Correct, Swami Dayananda continued. But no limited individual can produce an infinite effort. Therefore, it is impossible to reach Atma in this way. I myself struggled with this theory/practice issue for years. At the outset of my studies, I had been taught that I would eventually discover the infinite Atma, the Self, in the white heat, so to speak, of meditation. I devoted myself to this pursuit for years. I practiced various forms of meditation, sometimes meditating for hours at a day, but nothing happened. Those were difficult days for me. I grew frustrated and disillusioned. Finally, I gave away all my Vedanta books and was ready to leave the Chinmaya mission. But I had already abandoned worldly activities and committed myself to spiritual life, so I could not so easily go back. I didn't know what to do. I struggled a lot. Then one day, I had an opportunity to meet Yogi Ramaiah, a disciple of Pramana Maharishi. He told me that enlightenment is not the result of meditation. It is the result of self-inquiry, a process of inner reflection that can lead you to discover Atma. He said you must introvert your attention and inquire, who am I? To trace the sense of I-ness back to its source. The source from which I-ness arises is Atma. His guidance helped me a lot. But even though Yogi Ramaiah set me on the right track, I still had many doubts about how the teaching of Vedanta could lead me to discover Atma. My confusion was completely dissolved when I met a traditional teacher named Swami Dayananda. Was he a great scholar of Vedanta? I asked. No, not at all. He never underwent extensive study, but he had been taught properly by another traditional teacher that Vedanta is not a theory, a philosophy, or even a school of thought. It is a means of knowledge, a Pramana. Someone sitting behind me asked, Swamiji, what exactly is a Pramana? The voice belonged to Raj, the portly, balding banker from New Delhi, which we met in a previous chapter. A Pramana, Swami Dayananda explained, is a means for knowing something. Your eyes are a means for seeing, and your ears are a means for hearing. Both are Pramanas. In the same way, Vedanta is a means for knowing Atma. It leads you to discover the truth yourself. Raj asked, but without some special kind of meditation or spiritual practice, how can you discover the Atma? Do you know about the story of the 10 boys on a pilgrimage and the boy who forgot to count himself? Story also mentioned earlier. Raj nodded yes. Then tell me, what kind of practice should the 10th boy do to discover his missing classmate? Should he do yoga postures? Would standing on his head help? Or should he meditate? Or perform pranayam, breathing exercises? All that is useless. He needed to discover that he himself was the missing boy, and to make that discovery, he required a pramana, a means of knowledge. The passerby's instructions served as a pramana to make the boy understand that he was already the one for whom he was searching. Swami Dayananda explained that the nature of a problem determines what kind of solution is necessary. According to Vedanta, the basic problem is ignorance, non-recognition of the true self, Atma. And when the problem is ignorance of Atma, the solution can only be knowledge of Atma, self-knowledge, Atma-jnana. That is the knowledge gained when the true self is discovered within using Vedanta as a pramana. None of this suggests that meditation and other spiritual practice can be dispensed with. They are necessary as indispensable steps of preparation. Like eyes must be open before they can see, a person must be prepared to use Vedanta as a pramana. Spiritual practices, he continued, are like the prerequisite courses required for some college classes. Imagine someone who enrolls in a calculus class, listens carefully, takes copious notes, and spends hours in the library studying. Yet, in spite of all this, he fails miserably on the final examination. Why? Prior to enrolling, he had never studied algebra or geometry. In fact, he struggles with long division, so how could he possibly understand what was taught in the calculus class? In the same way, meditation and other spiritual practices are necessary to prepare you for Vedanta. Some people need more preparation, some people need less, but these practices are not optional. Raj asked, "A pramana may have been good enough to solve the riddle of the missing boy, but how can it reveal the Atma? Atma is infinite and limitless, beyond all words. How can the mere words of Vedanta reveal the limitless self?" Words cannot reveal the limitless, Swami Dayananda agreed. He, quoting from the Taittiriya Upanishad, Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha. Words together with the mind cannot grasp it. They fall short of comprehension. From the second canto or fourth chapter, first verse. The sages themselves acknowledged the limitations of words. They knew that language has boundaries, that words are useful up to a certain point but not beyond. Therefore, they had to use words very skillfully, keeping their limitations in view. Swami Dayananda explained that the sages never attempted to reveal the limitless Atma through the direct meaning of words. Instead, they developed a sophisticated method of using words to lead one to discover that reality within. This methodology is crucial to Vedanta because it overcomes the limitations of language. He illustrated this methodology using a story based on a traditional Hindu wedding. The elaborate 3-day ceremony includes many rituals and social functions. In one of the final rituals, the priest takes the newly married couple outside at night to see a faint star named Arundhati. Arundhati is actually a double star. It is paired with an even fainter star. To gaze upon these inseparable stars is considered a blessing for an enduring marriage. There is one difficulty in this ritual. How can the priest point out Arundhati, a tiny speck of light in the twinkling field of thousands of stars? He cannot simply point his finger skyward and say, "Look there." To make them see Arundhati, the priest employs a cleverer technique. First, he asks them to look at a clearly visible object, like a tree. Their dialogue continues like this. Do you see the large branch on the right side of the tree? Yes. Do you see the very bright star just above the tip of that branch? Yes. Is that Arundhati? No, it's not Arundhati. But do you see the somewhat dimmer star just to the right of that star? Yes. Is that Arundhati? No, but look above that star and a bit to the left. Do you see an even dimmer star? Yes, that must be Arundhati. No, but do you see the brighter star a little further to the left? Yes. Is that? No. Look above that star. There you can see Arundhati. When Swami Dayananda finished narrating this story, Raj exclaimed, Aha! Swami Dayananda's face glowed with delight as he went on to explain that the priest, by negating each wrong assumption, skillfully led the couple to discover Arundhati. The priest used a highly methodical process of negation. Vedanta works in the same way. It negates wrong conclusions about oneself and leads, step by step, to a discovery within. Just one more page. Even in the story of the 10 boys, the solution was a matter of negation. The passerby did not reveal the existence of the 10th boy. He was already there. He only needed to dismiss the boy's wrong conclusion. In the same way, Vedanta does not need to reveal the existence of Atma, the true self. The true self is always present within, though unrecognized due to ignorance. So therefore, Swami Dayananda concluded, even though words cannot grasp the infinite, they are not useless. Words have the power to negate. And every finite thing can be negated by words, but you can never negate yourself. After everything finite is dismissed, what remains is infinite. What remains is the limitless Atma, the truth of yourself. The ancient sages did not invent a new philosophy or theory. They discovered a truth, a reality that can only be described as neti, neti, not this, not this. And they formulated a method of negation that can lead others to the same discovery. It is this methodology that makes Vedanta unique. It has been passed down through the generations and is still used by traditional teachers today. Unfortunately, some contemporary teachers have not had the opportunity to learn this methodology properly, nor do they understand its importance. And when this methodology is neglected, Vedanta is reduced to being merely another theory or philosophy. And when it is misunderstood as mere theory, then people conclude that some kind of meditation or practice produces enlightenment. But the sages never asserted this. They taught that a process of self-inquiry, guided by this method of negation, leads to discovery of the true self. I thought about my discussion with Swami Brahmananda a few chapters ago and asked, Swamiji, if this methodology is so fundamental to Vedanta, how is it that many contemporary teachers fail to use it? Swami Dayananda explained, One reason is the enormous decline of scholarship in recent times. Many modern gurus do not even know the Sanskrit language properly. After my initiation as a sannyasi, I came here to Rishikesh to continue my studies, but I had great difficulty in finding a proper guru. Fortunately, I was introduced to Swami Tadatmananda, a truly great scholar and teacher of Vedanta. Under his guidance, I studied many Upanishads and texts like the Brahma Sutras, along with commentaries of Sri Shankara and many sub-commentaries. That is the level of traditional study. But many of today's teachers never had the opportunity to study with a traditional guru. As a result, they are cut off from the historic lineage and miss out on the flow of knowledge from the rishis to later generations of teachers. Unfortunately, they fall outside this great tradition. Is that why you call yourself a traditional teacher of Vedanta? I asked. He replied, "It should be sufficient to simply say, teacher of Vedanta. But today so many teachers have broken away from the lineage, and since I am their contemporary, I have to call myself a traditional teacher of Vedanta." Another refreshing section from Roar of the Ganges, reminding us that there is something more to the spiritual practice than mere theory. There is a very efficient methodology which can directly lead you to understand the nature of your true self. Thank you for listening.